Hello there, and welcome to What the Dog podcast, where we talk about what your dog is doing, why they're doing it, and can we fix it. My name is Katie. I am the owner here at For Pete's Sake Dog Training and the trainer. And today we are going to be talking about herding dogs. Now, over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be talking about different groups of different dogs. The reason why I'm going to do this is because I tend to see a lot of similar behaviors within the dog categories or breed groups. However, every dog is different, so it doesn't mean that because you have a herding dog that your dog automatically falls into a certain behavior or that I'm always going to see this behavior. I just see it very commonly come up. So I want to kind of discuss things about different dog groups, whether you are an owner who is potentially looking for another companion. Either you don't have a dog right now and you're looking for a new dog, you want to add a dog to your family and you already have one, or you have cats, or whatever it may be. This can be great for you, as well as if you do have a dog within these groups. It may help you answer some questions that you have come up with your dog. So, like I said, today we're going to talk about the herding group and your herding dogs, whether they are purebred or mixes. So if you have a mix with any one of the herding dogs, this still qualifies because you just never know what parts of the mix come together with dogs. And if you don't know exactly what mix your dog is, but you think it might be part herding, or you just listen to what I have to say and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. I think my dog's part herding. This may fall for you. So, in the herding group, we have dogs like the cattle dog, Australian shepherds, border collies, bearded collies. We have Malinois, German shepherds, Belgian sheepdogs. We have collies, regular collies. I think I already said. Sorry, my brain's all over the place. Corgis was the other C one I was looking for. Corgis. A lot of people don't realize that corgis are herding breeds, and they are. We have miniature versions of these things like mini Aussies. We have Old English sheepdogs, Shetland sheepdogs. So there's a good variety in here. And like I said, if you have a mix of these, hang out with me for a little bit. So when it comes to herding dogs, when we say the word herd or herding, it's pretty obvious that they were bred or have been bred to perform a duty or task of corralling animals. I don't want to keep using the word herding because I don't want to use the word herding to define herding, right? So they will move animals in a certain direction. And there are different tactics involved with this, but that's usually what we think of when we think of herding breeds. They move animals. For every breed, there's always pros and cons, and it really depends on your lifestyle and what you see as a pro versus a con. So I'm just going to talk about different aspects of their behaviors. So what I have found with herding breeds is that they love to work and learn, and they are very attentive, right? So I don't necessarily call dogs like smart dogs or intelligent dogs. It's just more of the dogs who have that drive to want to work and want to learn. And herding dogs do have it. They have the energy to do so. Where that can be a pro and a con. It's a pro because if you look at, again, this is all interpretation on your own opinions on what's a pro versus a con, but you tend to see a lot of herding dog breeds in the competitive like sport aspect, agility, fly ball, boat dock jumping, all these lure chasing. Their bodies are built to corral animals and move animals, so they have to be quick and agile. So that's why you tend to see them, as well as they're wanting to learn. Now, I'm not saying that you cannot put a bulldog in agility. I have seen it, and I have seen some quick bulldogs. It can be done. But this is why you tend to see them. Or you tend to see Malinois and German Shepherds in the police force. They are technically herding breeds, and again, that quick, agile body movements, as well as, the German Shepherds and Malinois naturally have a visual bark to them. I don't know how else to say that. They bark with their teeth, so it can be pretty intimidating to see that bark. So they do tend to be a pretty good working dog for the police and for other forces. But you do tend to see these animals pop up in those because of their wanting to learn and their need to work. They have the energy, and their body shape is just so athletic. So if you're someone who loves to go hiking and go on long runs, like, herding dogs may be good for you, right? I want to note that please don't run with your puppy. They need to be fully grown before you start doing all these big exercises. But herding dogs can be great for the heavily active lifestyle or farming lifestyle. You may not think you're very active, but if you have a homestead or you have some a little bit of acreage and you're outside a lot, you have a tractor or riding lawnmower, four-wheeler, like, you do things outside a lot more around your property is what I'm trying to say. Herding dogs may be great for you, right? If you are a farmer and you want a dog to help you move animals, it's great for you. There's a great variety of dogs as well, and you do tend to see that those herding behaviors come out with humans. So this is where sometimes people may see a con come into play because the dogs are a little more nippy and they're mouthy. So a lot of the times when I get mixes like the cattle dog mixes, you get a little bit more mouthiness when they're overstimulated or frustrated or having big emotions, as we like to say. And or your corgis. I have quite a few clients who are coming to me with corgis who are nipping at their feet or their hands while they play or just are around the house. They're walking around and they're nipping at their clothes, right, that are baggy. So part of that is that chemical connection in their brain that when they see movement, they want to control it. But also part of it is just their intensity to their emotions because they have that need and that extra energy to burn, per se. So they can be a little intense for some people. If you are not as active, I would not recommend the herding breeds, even the miniature versions. You may think you're getting a mini Aussie and it's smaller, so it's not going to need as much activity, and you are probably mistaken. Again, every dog is different, but it's almost like you put an Australian Shepherd and you downsized it. Doesn't mean that it has less energy. It just means it has the same amount of energy in a smaller body. And sometimes they seem a little jacked up on Mountain Dew. So I love mini Aussies. They're so cute. But they can be a little much. And with that intensity of emotions, like I said, the nipping, the mouthingness, we tend to get barking with it as well. And that can just be a lot for people to handle. With that intensity of their emotions and their need to want to work, you have to make sure you're meeting their needs. So if you live in an apartment where you work 8 hours a day and you don't really go outside that much, not going to be the best fit for you. But if you live in an apartment and you're like, yep, I work for 8 hours a day, but I come home and I love going out to a park and we walk, miles, or I take my dog to a place where we can play frisbee and we can play fetch and we can do agility, whatever it may be, like, cool, great. You're meeting your dog's needs. Herding dogs tend to need less sleep because they have all this energy and this need to work. So note that they're not going to be, quote, lazy dogs. They are going to be very active dogs. And with that, I find a lot of people digging into more enrichment. So maybe if it's raining outside and you're like, well, I can't take you on a walk, how am I going to, I shouldn't just say walk. There's lots of things you can do outside, but how am I going to burn this energy? So having puzzle toys and slow feeders and food dispensing feeders, or making, feeding time into a job for those dogs is a great alternative for you too. So you do have to be a little bit more creative with your herding dogs, which for some people is really fun. So it can be, fun to do those activities with your dog. And if that doesn't sound fun to you, then don't get a herding dog, right? They also sometimes might like make up their work, if that makes sense. So if you're not meeting those needs, they may start getting into things around the house. Like I said, they can herd people or herd other pets. They might bark, at delivery trucks, or tear up your delivery box when you bring it inside. And they can just, it's all different. So if that need to work isn't being met, they're going to find a job to do, and you may not like the outcome of that. So that's why meeting their needs can be very, very, very important. And some people may call herding breeds stubborn. I always kind of, stubborn's with a gray area, because it's all about just understanding how they learn and how they work and what they like to do. Because honestly, if they're definitely ones, if they don't like something, they're going to tell you about it. So they're just a little sassy. With that need to work, though, I do sometimes find that herding dogs can develop anxiety, or the breeders are not paying attention to breeding non-anxious dogs. So that's a whole other topic on getting into why dogs are so anxious right now versus in the past. But I do tend to see anxiety in those dogs, and it's almost like they don't really have a great filter in their brain, and their neurons are just shooting all the time, and that every life is just so overwhelming that they can't focus, and they can't excuse me, they can't like calm down to evaluate a situation. They just say, thing go, I see it go, I see it go. And like they're just very quickly sending information throughout their brain on reacting to stimuli that's around them. So you do tend to see dogs with some anxiety. And if that's something that you find that your herding dog has, I strongly recommend that you talk to your vet about potentially medications, but also even just supplements or different food that could be helping with that anxiety as well. Oh, but yeah, anxiety tends to be very common, which you'll hear that in a couple other groups that I talk about as well. Usually the dogs who need a job tend to have some anxiety in some different shapes and forms. But I guess the last thing I'll mention would be like grooming. So obviously in the herding group, we have a variety of different fur coats, from like the Australian cattle dog to like bearded collies. If you don't know what a bearded collie is, it has very, very long beard. I mean, it's bearded collie, very long, or even just regular collies, right? So when you start to get into more of the Australian Shepherd, medium length, I'd say Australian cattle dogs are definitely like a short to medium length of fur. You're not really seeing them get as fluffy as your Australian Shepherds do. But you do need to look at grooming, not breeding, grooming for these dogs, because the ones with the longer coats are definitely going to need that upkeep. And also knowing when it is appropriate to shave long furred dogs versus not, because certain dogs do have, their coat is made to help either cool or keep them warm. So if we're shaving that, we're taking that away. So that's something that you want to make sure you're talking with a groomer on. I'm a dog trainer, not a groomer. So I'm not going to even hit on the care of some of these fur coats. But I do know that there are certain ones that you should not shave because of how their fur coat is built and created. So make sure you're talking to professional groomers about that. And on top of that, I guess, because like if you are taking your dogs out to fields and things, the grooming aspect of that in tall grasses, they can get more stuff caught in their fur coat. So, but I do know people who just don't want to have to schedule a grooming appointment, every 4 to 8 weeks, whatever it may be, and so then don't get a dog that needs to have grooming appointments. You still are going to have to do some basic grooming at home. So cooperative care at home is still going to be good, but some people just don't want that expense of going to the groomer, and that's totally fine. So, well, thank you again. I told him it's going to be quick, vague, to the point. If you have any specific questions about your herding dog, though, let me know. If there are any topics you would like me to talk about, you can definitely note on this podcast what other topics you would like me to talk about. But otherwise, I'm going to just keep chugging along with different groups, and I'm not sure what group I will do next. So hang in there with me. Thank you for joining, and we will see you next time. Bye.